Nigel Farage is poised to set up a new bank that is anti-woke and aimed at Conservatives. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I think Nigel should be knighted for what he's done, honestly, because if he hadn't come out and talked about this, nothing would be done. And there are so many that are in his position, and thank God he's got the media platform.
But funnily enough, I mean, you mentioned the knighthood. I mean, the amazing thing is he's stood up for people. He's tried to take back control in this country. He's defended people against the banking establishment. And actually, you know, the powers that be absolutely hate him for it.
Yeah, completely. But the one thing I would say is that we know on this show we talk about trans stuff, we talk about Black Lives Matter, we talk about all that kind of stuff. But finally, we've got Nigel's brought the more insidious side of woke to the table. This kind of control through other means, and they're using these big private companies through what we talk about all the time, these ESG scores and all the rest of it. And finally, we're going to have a conversation to put this right on the agenda, because I do believe that if you fundamentally change the way that what's being called woke capitalism works, and we change the way that these private companies invest in everything, I think a lot of this kind of craziness will just disappear.
Ben, I've got to say, I had never heard of this ESG score until a couple of weeks ago, and now I realise it's actually one of the most significant things in our lives, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's the mechanism by which... I mean, Tony Blair kicked it off in 2006 when he changed the Companies Act to make directors responsible not just for running their companies and making profits, but responsible for social justice, responsible for the environment. And then following Tony Blair came a whole host of regulations. I mean, literally dozens of laws and regulations around which ESG has been created. And so now it's not good enough just to make money for your shareholders. Now you have to drive your company towards net zero. You have to show the world that you're heading in that direction. You've got to adopt diversity and inclusion into your policies. And if that wasn't bad enough, you've got to make sure that all the businesses with which you trade are similarly adopting the same thing. And that's the really clever bit.
Do you know the thing that amazed me?
Because it forces everyone to do it.
It's the way it goes round and round and round. I think I've mentioned before that I have an anti-slavery policy. I'm not joking. I needed, and I was working for a major multinational, teaching their executives how to public speak, and they insisted, as part of their ESG rules, that I came up with an anti-slavery policy. And that involved me having to pretend, let's be honest. Having to pretend.
Did you have to let the slaves go that you've got in the basement?
I had to vet the pen makers and the people that made my pad to check that they
But you do, that's the absurdity. You've got to check that kind of thing. You know, where was this pad made?
Just picking up on what you said, Pete, you called it woke capitalism, but I don't know if you'd agree with this, Ben. This is not capitalism.
No, it's not. It's the antithesis of capitalism.
It's neo-Marxism.
Absolutely. It'll emasculate our economy.
Completely.
And that's what we're
it's like
doing.
We've become like China. It's like we've become like China. It's so scary. And
I'm not sure China's overly worried about an anti-slavery policy.
No, not really, no.
Or net zero.
And I have to say, I'll say again, I want Nigel Farage knighted for this, because it's helped so many. And who would have thought he'd be helping Gina Miller?
I've got a great story about Nigel Farage, right? You're going to love this.
But it's not as good as mine.
I'm going to say they've all got a good
Definitely
story.
not as good as mine.
When I worked for the New York Observer, it was owned by Jared and Ivanka, right? And one day I needed to write an article and couldn't think of anything else to write. So I said that I put a rumour around that Nigel Farage was going to be the new British ambassador to Washington. And Donald Trump read the article and began tweeting about it. And it became this global story about how Nigel Farage was going to replace Kim Darroch as the ambassador. And I'd done nothing other than woken up hungover and made up the story.
Great story.
Great story.
Would have been a phenomenal appointment. Can you imagine what we would have done for transatlantic?
I'll tell you that is the sad thing, Ben, just to slightly alter what we were talking about. You know, Donald Trump begged us to have the US-UK free trade deal, and Theresa May just wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Why?
Awful.
Because she wants to prioritise working with the Europeans because they've been so good to us. I mean,
we've been at war with them for most of the last 500 years, but anyway.
No, just flicking back to the ESG thing, I think there's one thing it's important is to put some numbers to this thing. So the amount of money that is floating around in what's known as the Environmental Fund Trading Fund, so basically the things they buy and sell, is about $41 trillion worth.
You're kidding.
That's what it's worth. It's predicted by 2025 to be worth $50 trillion. So this is the thing that we have to remember. The amount of money these companies can make off the back of this stuff is huge. So I think this is why it's kind of become such a tight hold around these companies, is because of the amount of money floating around in it is incredible.
It's the theory, Pete, that effectively what's now happening is when people go along to their local go along to the pension fund, go along to the bank, and it says, we invest ethically, what they're actually accidentally doing is pushing this woke agenda.
Oh, definitely. So this is how
losing their money.
Yes, so that's a big part of it. I'd be furious if I was part of one of these pension funds that can't invest in profitable companies because of the ESG scores. But yeah, so that's essentially what happened. It started off as ethical trading, as kind of a nice trade. I find it interesting that McDonald's dropped from their corporate website any mention of ESG, the kind of the acronym. All the wording was dropped very quietly from their website just the other day. I think it was, I want to say, Thursday last week. But
McDonald's are quite funny about that. I logged onto their website once and it said, our halal policy. I'm not joking. It said, frequently asked questions. Are your products halal? No, you are mistaken. None of our products are halal in anywhere in the world.
No, but
I thought they're really going for that.
But how companies looking? What happened with Bud Light, Nike, and billions? They lost billions.
Yeah, so this will be
for doing this woke nonsense.
But Lizzie, if you've got no access to capital through the investment funds, you've got no business anyway, so it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
and like we said, that's kind of where they've got you now. Is that without following this thing, the amount of money that you can invest in, these companies can invest in, goes from this big to this big. So and
it's really bad for the economy. It's bad for our defence industry. They won't invest in defence. They won't invest in our fossil fuel companies.
No.
So we're turning our back on being energy independent. We're turning
being able to defend ourselves.
Being able to defend ourselves.
But Ben, we did this stupidity with our anti-bribery policies because effectively now overseas aid cannot be linked to trade in any meaningful way, and therefore it costs an absolute fortune. Yeah. We pump this money down the toilet. Some African dictator gets to keep it, and we don't develop our economy.
No so-called soft power coming to the United Kingdom.
Also, it goes into pay for slay, doesn't it? Because the money that we give to the Palestinian Authority is used to fund terrorists to kill, and they get more money the more Jewish people they kill.
I've got to be honest with you. I think the amount of money that we tip down the toilet on stupidity like ESG and indeed on overseas aid. But anyway, we do have to ask the question. and let's just remind everybody what that question was. The question was, is Nigel Farage poised to open up a new bank that is anti-woke and aimed at Conservatives?
Well, I'd like to say yes. I think it could be true.
Let's go true.
It's absolutely and unfortunately false.
How can I say?
Well, look, I'm phoning him after the show and telling him to do it.
Please, Nigel. Please, come on. OK, that was from our friends at the Upper Lip. Anyway, to Lois and to Ben. The migrant crisis will last another 5 years, according to the Home Office. So let me read that again. The migrant crisis will only last another 5 years, according to the Home Office. Is it true or is it false?
Well, it's true to the extent the Home Office said that. It's
They made the statement.
They made the statement. The reality is it's going to go on and on and on and on. But so much for stopping the boats. Do you remember? Yeah. I'm going to stop the boats in 2023. Well, 5 years, 2023.
I mean, the thing that amazed me when they go, we can't stop these dinghies. You've got 2 Trident nuclear submarines. if it can't stop, I mean, can you imagine? I'll tell you what we'll do. If we go to war with Russia, if we go to war with Russia, just make sure Vladimir doesn't come in a dinghy. Oh God, I never thought of that. Damn it.
But how are we going to stop these boats? Let's be honest. With the European judges stopping everything, Rwanda, there's no deterrent.
Do you know what I'd do? A big rope and sail it back.
Well, and sort the French out. Why are we giving French all this money for them doing minor adjustments that don't work? And they're escorting the boats to our shores. And we had the tragedy the other day. I mean, terrible. But it was our boats that went to rescue.
I did approve of one thing, I have to say, in Calais, where France built a wall and made Britain pay. I thought, I'll go with that. That's a good idea.
No, I went out. French never buy lunch. I had a French boyfriend. He was the same, honestly.
Isn't it basically? I think most French food starts as a bet.
How long did he last?
Not very long.
Not very long. No, I think that would be it.
But I gotta say, if you couple this report that came from the Home Office with what's happened this week, where basically the French have said, well, we're not taking back any of your migrants that you send over. You know, this deal that the Prime Minister tried to work out, and the French just basically went no.
No, stop. How did they do it again, Pete?
No.
Did they go?
That sounded Japanese.
But no, this is actually another major setback for the government on this issue. That if they can't even get this negotiation to work, how are they ever going to get it?
But also,
done?
Pete, it proves the French aren't in good faith, doesn't it?
Exactly.
You know?
It's such a key point, and it shows that the European Union is not willing to play ball in this game. But you also have to remember the European Union can't even agree on its own migration policy, considering Poland are about to go to a referendum on the EU migration policy in general.
I'll tell you something that amazed me about the EU migration policy. It's almost akin what Germany did to sort of organising a party in your house and then asking the neighbours to accommodate it. The Germans were like, we're going to bring all these Syrians to Germany. Right, Poland, you have them. Well, how did that happen?
They've got a bit of beef, Poland and Germany, haven't they?
No, in Poland they've got a bit of pork, not beef.
On that show, when I was covering for the wonderful Ash Gould the other day, we had a guest that said that it's his understanding from contacts within the Home Office that there's a gentleman's agreement that was after Brexit that they won't send anyone back, you know? That they told the French authorities, keep them coming. We're not going to send anyone back.
So why did Rishi give all that money to Macron? They're there in their tight little suits, patting each other on the back.
Tight little suits.
Has gone on?
They get closer than patting each other on the back.
I'll tell you something. I'm off now to poke out my mind's eye. Horrendous.
It's not a perish of thought. But no, I mean, what are French doing? It's I really think we've got to look at ourselves, stop giving to the French. They don't want to help us.
Absolutely.
And they're not helping us.
The more people they send, the more money we give them. I think they've made the connection.
We've got to reinforce our borders. We need to take Australia, what they did, turn the boats back, reinforce our borders, have the Navy there, take them and put them back, turn them back.
Not implementing. She's absolutely right. The civil service is not implementing the government policy. That's the problem. And they're doing things deliberately as a wind-up as well. You know, like that barge. They had no intention of putting one person on that barge. No intention.
And have you seen the TikToks with the smugglers? I mean, we're not dealing with the gangs. And they're even
so
filming
it's interesting we bring up the gangs because the government have tried this theory again. Do you know what? Let's give loads of money to Turkey because we'll stop them further up. I mean, talk about the definition of insanity to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. I like the idea of it. But I'm sorry, but
they're going to disrupt the boat trade in Turkey. Like you can't buy a dinghy somewhere else in Europe.
I mean, but then they want to roll it out. I think it's into Syria and Tunisia. They want to roll that. Are we just kind of just moving it further around the world? It comes back at us and it gets to an island or something like that.
When they get rid of the dinghies, it'll be Lilo's next. Or the banana boat.
Didn't Priti Patel have jet skis? Tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't she think have jet skis?
She wanted jet skis, militarised jet skis to push these boats back. And actually, I think she was onto something.
It's not a bad idea.
So she was onto they're speedy, they're quick, they can get there, and they can just say no.
But no, it's interesting you bring up Priti Patel because she's been, obviously, there's an RAF base in her constituency where they're going to house some of these asylum seekers and all the rest of it. And I find it interesting that she's now kind of advocating against her own policies that she implemented when she was Home Secretary. I mean, let's talk about a turn of events here.
But Pete, the reality is, it's irrelevant where you put people. The problem here is the numbers of people.
100%. I completely agree. And this is one of the reasons I really hate it when people keep making this argument about safe routes. And all, like, you know, from these people, they say, like, all the refugees.
But there are lots of safe routes from France. You can take Eurostar. Charles de Gaulle to Heathrow.
But this goes on to the point is that, you open the safe route, and all you're just going to do is flood the safe route with the same number of people. And that's another problem here.
But there's 180,000 still waiting to be processed. It's nearly 7 million a day.
At the risk of being repetitious, because I have said this before, but I did a little bit of work helping out Ukraine when we thought there was going to be the big genocide. And the people coming across the border were mums with young kids. And what they did was they wanted to be as near to Ukraine as they could be. Now, for some of those people, that was moving to the United Kingdom. For the vast majority of them, it was to stay in Poland, Moldova, and countries like that. Absolutely. This idea that when you are a refugee and your home's been attacked, what you want to do is go 1,000 miles. No, you want to literally go across the border and sit there under the protection of the next safe country, which is why that treaty is what it is.
What you might call genuine refugees.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, actually, because did anybody watch Newsnight the other week?
No, I'm sorry. No. Right, I'm telling you, Barnes. I'm telling you, Barnes, that's warning number one. Right, that's warning number one.
There's secret woke. That's secretly woke.
No. Is the migrant crisis going to last another 5 years, according to the Home Office? Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
Yeah, we say true.
It's absolutely true. Get your head on. OK, it's now time for the scores with the Woke Wabbit.
Sorry about this, Ben.
So, what are the scores?
50 points each.
Ben, as a newcomer, you'll find the scores don't always
They move around a bit.
follow any particular rhyme or reason.
It's like macroeconomic statistics out of the OBR.
Exactly.
The scores are being done by Professor Niall Ferguson. OK.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
So to Lizzie and to Pete, 5% of under 30s in America now identify as trans. Is it true or is it false?
Well, it is transatlantic.
Yeah.
Hey, good girl.
That's not acceptable. That is. I think Lizzie's been working with Bobby Davro on the time.
No, you've been talking to Lance Foreman. That's his joke.
No, this comes from the Pew Research Center. It's like a big kind of social sciences organization over in America. I got sent this report and I did read through it, and it's very concerning in my opinion. It's about the rapid rise of people who identify as trans and non-binary, and it talks about kind of the influences of it in terms of social media. It's kind of being trendy, and it's as though like there's people feel like they need to identify as something, I think, to kind of feel special these days, and I think I find that really concerning because it's just the whole thing is kind of frightening.
But Pete, right, when I was younger, they used to. Don't worry, this is not going. This is not going.
It was a girl. Yes.
My name's Karen. But when I was younger, there were a certain number of people who liked to cross-dress, and we called them transvestites. And now they're all these non-binary.
New romantics.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Adamant, stand and deliver.
So my mum calls me when I do my makeup. You know, you do the chiseling. Yeah. And I haven't blended. My mum goes, stand and deliver.
But the reality is, nowadays, they put it all in together as a trans thing. And actually, the number of people who are having sort of corrective surgery is really relatively small. The vast majority of people are just putting on a frock and going, I'm a woman.
It's a minority, but people are using the trans community to score points for political, thinking this is the right thing to say, this is going to win us votes. Not the real,
it's wretched because
caring about the trans.
Genuine gender dysphoria is a real issue. It's a real mental health issue. And these people are actually being weaponized for political ideology. Sorry, serious moment there. But it really, gets you down. And then they're encouraging children at school.
Have 5% of Americans under 30 said they're trans? Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's true.
It's absolutely true!
Ben, you'll learn on this show that sometimes there are muted applauses.
Sadiq Khan, true. OK.
Sadly true.
Sadiq Khan has blamed the widespread looting that's taken place recently on 13 years of Conservative government. Is it true or is it false?
It's the kind of thing he'd say.
It's exactly the kind of thing he'd abrogate any sort of responsibility. It's got to be true.
The worse that Sadiq Khan does in his job, because he's so good at blaming people, the more popular he seems to become.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing about woke, isn't it? Because he wraps himself in wokery, and so he makes himself impregnable. The other person who did that so well was Nicola Sturgeon. And then we just discovered she... Well, allegedly.
Your Honour.
Ben. No, Ben, don't stop talking.
allegedly
did get caught out.
Yeah,
Jimmy
buying camper
Cranky, as I
vans.
call her. She did get caught out, but I think Khan's going to get really caught out. And as we've seen, everyone doesn't want this you, Les. And now Keir Starmer has flip-flopped again.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain Flip-Flop.
But
They don't want
I don't know if you remember, it was on Wednesday the 9th, there was supposed to be this big kind of raid of a JD Sports store in Oxford Street here in London.
Oh, and then they did it in Southend.
And then
as
there's
well.
one in Southend, and I think there's supposed to be one up north.
Your
as
friend
well.
Lizzie was there.
Yeah,
Was he
Was he there?
Yeah, he was, yeah. And obviously, like, there was loads of police everywhere. It was on one of these kind of dispersion zones things and all the rest of it. And I remember I was sat in my office with a couple of colleagues, and I said, I wonder how long it'll take before somebody blames there's not enough boxing clubs and sports clubs for kids to go to before, you know, to kind of blame
Or
this.
climate change.
And climate change.
Yeah,
Something
it'd definitely be
ridiculous.
to do with that.
And literally,
Brexit.
I
Oh,
timed
Brexit.
it. It
It's
took
Brexit.
2 hours. It took 2 hours for a mainstream media commentator to come on to say, oh, it's because there's not enough boxing clubs and sports clubs. That's why this stuff is happening. It's like, no, it's not. Can we please have a genuine conversation about the kind of, what is becoming essentially lawless Britain?
It is.
Yeah,
It really is.
By the way, when I was a kid, it was what we used to call the Salford Dash, which was Dixon's to cash converters with a VCR.
Can I just say, you've aged yourself dramatically in that comment. Dixon doesn't even exist anymore.
Dixon's version is not good for you.
Dixon's.
The Salford Dash.
Yeah, I used to call one of those branches, those shops, Fagans. So, how many cameras have managed to have been sold second-hand? Goodness me. Anyway, OK, has Sadiq Khan blamed the looting that we saw on 13 years of Conservative government? Is it true or is it false?
What do you
It
reckon?
should be true, but
It would likely be true.
Yeah. What do you think, Ben? You
Well,
read the
you
corner of
choose,
it.
Lois. You go.
False.
It's absolutely false!
I am actually shocked at that.
Once
I know,
again,
yeah.
well, no. I'll tell you what's obviously happened. Basically, he hasn't said that publicly yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was from the upper lip. So come on, put your hat on. Come on, Woke Wabbit. So what have you been up to this week, Woke Wabbit?
Well, I went to this this thing on Oxford Street. There was this, you know, we went shopping and
Shopping.
but I don't think the problem is a lack of sports and boxing clubs, because that is toxic masculinity.
No.
It actually is climate change that caused it.
Anyway, what are the scores, Woke Wabbit?
Minus 100 points to Lois. And minus 1,000 points to Pete.
Hold on a minute.
I just
Very serious show.
It is very serious. I can tell.
I just think that went horribly wrong there, didn't it? The number of cars driven the wrong way on motorways has increased by 13%. What? Is it true or is it false?
Oh, you see, as a driver,
See,
I
that's
did
the-
see this. I saw 200 cars going the wrong way.
No, it's not.
It wasn't nothing
Lizzie,
to do
you
with
were the
me,
one
was it?
going the wrong way.
Exactly.
You're part of the
Nothing
problem.
to do with me. I am the problem.
Yeah, no, so I'm going to have to offload this to somebody else because I don't drive, so I can't really comment on this one.
When I come into London from my home, generally I get the train. But when I finish the TV show at 1 a.m, obviously I have to get a car home. I will tell you, even in the middle of the night, London's so badly designed that there's traffic, and it's coming to other towns and cities near you. It's unbelievable.
Definitely. There's also one element you picked up about people going really slow. If we look to Wales, for example, they want to bring in this mandatory 20 miles an hour
Madness.
situation, which, as far as I can read, it basically just seems that it's going to add more kind of carbon dioxide and air pollution into the
dangerous.
situation. It is generally classed as more dangerous, and I don't really understand why anybody seems to be advocating. I get it around schools where you should slow down anyway, but I don't really understand why everywhere else it
Well,
needs
I
to
can
be
tell
there.
you.
Oh,
Do you like to
excellent.
know? Right,
Has it got something to do with climate change?
Guilty. Anyway, so no, actually it has nothing to do with climate change. But
What
that
a
is one
surprise.
one of the reasons that they're giving for it. So on the other place, the other channel, the other day, I talked about this House of Lords report, which is about behavioural change around climate issues and energy policy. And there is an actual policy to use the 20-mile-an-hour limits to annoy you out of your cars.
Oh,
It's
right.
got it
Oh,
in
really?
the report.
Oh,
I'll
my
send you it.
goodness, yeah.
Yeah, and it says like low traffic neighbourhoods, 20 miles an hour. It does nothing to
Designed
help
to irritate.
emissions because obviously you're increasing traffic in other areas.
But I will tell you what happens, and this is the big danger that a lot of these towns and cities have got. It's what happened in Manchester. Effectively, all of these local authorities put in one-way systems. They all put in massive parking charges, and then somebody opened something called the Trafford Centre with 7,000 free car parking spaces, and all the local towns died.
Yeah.
And the local authorities were there weeping and crying about it, because ultimately, in the end, people will stop using these places, and then it's going to be a nightmare for the economy. But anyway,
Yes.
has there been a 13% increase in the number of cars driving the wrong way on the motorway? Is it true or is it false?
I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, let's go true.
It's absolutely true.
That's the motorists fighting back. We're going to take the fight to the motorway.
We are. You and me, Ben.
The BBC has launched an astrological dating podcast for black members of the LGBTQ community. Is it true
I mean,
or is it false?
it's so outrageous. It must be true.
Sorry, I'm just going to look at that again.
Repeat the question again.
So let's just unpick this, right? So the key points are astrological, dating, podcast, black LGBTQ.
This is crazy. That's like...
I think it's a disgrace that there was no disability.
I was going to say, yeah.
They scrapped the name Happiness in Uranus. That's what it's going to be called.
Is it a happy place?
Look at Saturn. Sorry.
No, I think this is on Radio 1 Extra, isn't it? It's one of these... It's clearly not aimed at us, if I'm being really... Not on our demographic, but...
Well, no, I'm sorry. I self-identify as an astrological black LGBTQ.
I don't know about you guys, but I've noticed there is an increase in lots of people using astrological signs and things. And I'm not being funny. If I was ever on a date with somebody and they started talking about my star sign, I'd probably say I need to go to the toilet and leave.
That's because you're a Sagittarius, half man, half horse.
I've got. He's definitely half horse. We got changed in the same room once. But anyway, your mum and dad watched it.
No, but I'm sorry. We're paying for the BBC out of our purse.
Yeah.
What are we doing with this stupid woke
Exactly.
nonsense?
But the problem is, Lizzie, I've always got mixed emotions about this, because by
think it'd be
making stuff that's really, really bad, they're hastening their demise.
Yeah.
So it's always swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Yeah, but on
like-
our money, though.
Yeah, and that's the point. We talked last week about the kind of general decline in viewership and of the BBC, even in their core demographics and all the rest of it. And this seems to be what they think is going to win it round. And they're either, like you said, either the biggest kind of plans and that we've got in the BBC to deliberately bring it down from within, or they are generally that so out of touch with what people genuinely want from their national broadcaster that.
Well,
I
have to say to you, when I was doing my YouTube channel, I genuinely thought that people were getting rid of their TV licence and committing fraud and just not paying, even though they were watching live TV. I was pretty shocked when people got in touch to say that they just don't have a TV anymore.
Yeah.
They don't bother with it anymore.
Yeah.
It's just out of date. And I think the BBC's got multiple problems there, Ben.
Yeah.
Because not only are the programmes unpopular, but the format itself is unpopular.
Yeah, well, they're going out of business.
Is it true or is it false?
You choose. You're on a roll, Les. You choose.
It's
be true.
unbelievably
It's so
true! Come on, get your head on. Come on.
Back.
Right, now, one of the scores won't grab it.
1 million points for Lois
Yay!
and 5 points for Peter. And
OK, well, what are you going to do after this show's finished?
well, I've got to go do my BBC podcast, haven't I?
Is that for rabbit members of the LGBT community?
Exactly, yep.
Thank you so much, Woke Rabbit. Yay.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
Nat West has apologised to a homeowner after painting a giant mural of Marcus Rashford on his house without asking him. Is it true or is it false?
Have you seen this?
No, I have not.
Okay, so I saw this because I actually thought, oh, wait, here we go. Nat West have done it again, in that kind of, brilliant PR streak that they're having. What this story actually is Nat West have teamed up with Marcus Rashford and they've got some kind of literacy program thing. And in Brighton, they've painted this massive mural of Marcus Rashford. It's a very impressive mural, but it's also got a whopping great big Nat West logo on it. And they didn't tell the the person who owns this house. So that's what they were actually going to paint on it. And the landlord has basically come back and said, look, I don't have a problem with graffiti. I don't have a problem with street art or anything like that. I don't have a problem with what they want to do. He just didn't want his wall to be used as advertising space for banks and things like that. And I actually thought, I was reading this and thought, do you know what? This guy, it seems pretty reasonable.
Especially Nat West.
And Nat West as well.
I've got to be honest with you, there are viewers in Northern Ireland saying, that sounds pretty tame.
But no, again, I think we talk about kind of PR companies and their PR levels, but I mean, NatWest are just on a roll of how not to do things.
I mean,
a lot of what I do when I'm not here is I work in PR and public affairs and things, and like I often sit around, I read these stories, I'm like, this was definitely made by a committee where no one was brave enough to say this is the dumbest thing we've ever agreed to do.
Oh no, I'm sorry. There's no point in saying, in the case of NatWest, that anyone could say this is the dumbest thing. I'll tell you one thing that did make me laugh.
There was a slightly bigger story.
slightly bigger.
The thing that made me laugh was Coots in their office. Many people won't have seen it in the sort of Charing Cross area. It had the gay flag all over it, didn't it? Not for long though. They whipped that down.
Have they really?
I'll tell you what. The day that Nigel Farage went public, that night the thing was off.
But you know them doing that statement that the Alison Rose was staying in and they're going to keep her in. And my friend who works in the bank, because you know I know everyone.
She does know everyone.
Sent me a text saying no, they're giving her the boot in about 2 hours. So I actually did put that on my Twitter account.
By the way, just to be clear, Lizzie Cundy, the only celebrity she doesn't claim to be friends with is Kim Jong-un. Everyone else.
Hold on a minute.
Can I just make a point about the
Kim, babe, how you doing?
that flag, that LGBTQ flag, actually, I don't know if people are aware of that, actually has things on it to do with Black Lives Matter. And pro-Palestine and anti-Israel elements.
Is it really?
Yeah, the black on it is an anti-Israel thing.
And how sad that when the vicar just asked why all these flags were up in the bank, he loses his account as well.
They might be surprised Palestinians on the whole are Muslim. They're not too...
Yeah, I don't think they have too good a time, the trans community being thrown off roofs in Palestine.
But actually, that does show you the way that these things are being hijacked, because whatever you say about Israel and Palestine, Israel is clearly the most pro-LGBTQ country in the Middle East, and Palestine isn't.
Exactly. You don't last very long there.
No, absolutely.
Exactly. So, to answer your question...
Yes. Do you need it again? Just to recap. Has NatWest painted an enormous Marcus Rashford on somebody's house without getting proper permission? Is it true or is it false?
It's true. It's true.
It's absolutely true! Scottish shops have warned customers that there is a shortage of iron brew after drivers went on strike. And just to let you know, 20 cans of iron brew are consumed every second in Scotland.
Are they really?
God.
Is it true or is it false?
Well, if you have to listen to that chap, what's his name? Yusuf
Hamza.
Oh, yeah, you need something strong.
You need something very strong to get through it.
I'll be drinking.
I think you'll find it's made in Scotland from Garders.
No, but how do they get around things like the sugar tax and stuff like that, I suppose? You know, like...
Willing to pay more?
Yeah, just willing to pay. I wonder if that's what they are. I have to admit, I don't know if this is true or false. I generally don't know, but... it's 20. Is it really 20 cans? Is that what you said?
I mean, I don't know whether that's good or bad.
In a way, you're kind of impressed by it, aren't you?
Why didn't they have it with their deep-fried Mars bar before or after?
Oh, I don't know. I'll tell you. Maybe Walker is a Scottish name. I think it is. But I'd have haggis and iron brew for dinner.
Have you?
Oh, no problem.
I don't mind haggis when I go to bed.
I love haggis.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm sure about iron brew then.
No.
One thing you've got to say in defence of haggis is every single country in the world has an offal sausage as part of its cuisine. At least the Scottish are honest about it. You know, they're not pretending that it's awful.
No, but they want a vegan version of it now.
Vegan stomach.
You just made that up.
I call him useless.
You know, you can't be defamatory on air.
It's not like me.
You can on this show.
It reminds me of when the City Council in Edinburgh banned haggis from old people's homes on health grounds. And they, come on, they've just got to sit there dribbling into the tea. At least give them a half-decent dinner. Anyway, so have Scotland got a shortage of Iron Brew as a result of the strike. Is it true or is it false?
Should we go with true?
Got to be true.
Yeah, got to be true.
Yeah, true.
Absolutely true! Get your head on, get your head on, quick. It's the woke rabbit!
It's back.
Look, what do you think most people should now be concerned about in terms of the big issues that are facing this world?
Well, it's obviously climate change, isn't it? That's the number one.
Okay, well, what happens if we stop oil, do you think?
Climate change stops.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I hadn't realised. Of course, you're right. Okay, so what are the scores, woke rabbit?
200,000 points for Lois.
Wow.
And 5 points again for Lizzie.
Thank you very much, woke rabbit.
You're going to cause friction with things.
It's friction he's after. Okay.
Right.
Skittles is facing a backlash after adding Black Trans Lives Matter to their packaging.
Oh, please tell me this isn't true.
One thing that a lot of people don't realise is that the reason that these companies do this stuff is because they get a massive tax break from them.
Yeah, they do.
And that's the reality of it. These companies, like Skills are owned by Mars, one of the biggest companies in the world. They could give $100,000 away like that, and it wouldn't make an ounce of difference to their balance sheet.
No.
The reality is these companies hop onto these kind of trends and they pretend to care. Skittles don't care about Black Trans Lives Matter. They don't care about Black Lives Matter. They don't care about anything other than selling you something.
Yeah,
and that
surely
is the reality.
The public aren't stupid. The public will see through this and think this is just
but
making
if
money. And they're just using
I'm not more inclined to eat Skittles based on the fact that they've mentioned something about Black Trans lives.
Yeah. Well, sadly, I think too many of within the LGBT community think that this is a good thing. They see any kind of representation as a good thing, and I'm just like, at some point they've got to wake up and realise.
The community being used.
I completely agree with you.
Does stuff like this actually boost a product's popularity?
No, I mean, it just can't, can
No,
it?
I don't.
And what proportion of society is black and trans? It must be, I think, 0.4% of the United Kingdom.
I mean, can you imagine, Ben, one of your friends going, Ben, we've got to go out and buy some Skittles. Why? Because it supports Black Trans lives. You go, oh, that's helpful.
Or let's buy shares in Mars.
There are a lot of immigrant communities to this country that are not interested in a lot of the social liberalism that we appear to be interested in.
Not at all.
And so I'm not convinced that necessarily this appeals to those people.
No, when my friend Lawrence Fox was standing in Uxbridge, the Muslim community there approached him because they wanted to embrace his fight against pride. Lawrence has come out against the LGBTQ stuff. Yeah, and the Muslim community were supportive and embracing of it.
Because a lot of people want to speak out, but they feel intimidated and silenced. They can't.
I've got to be honest with you. The whole Pride thing. It appears now to be a Pride year, doesn't it? Yeah. So it's like a month of official celebrations.
But Lawrence has got no problem with the original flag, by the way. Lawrence Fox. It's just the and all the TQI
Black
stuff.
Lives Matter doesn't stand for what we thought.
Well, I do think the Black Lives Matter thing really upset me because when obviously George Floyd was murdered, this is terrible, but it is a matter for the quality of American policing. And the idea that you would spit in the face, as happened to some firearms officers on the gates of Downing Street, who clearly have absolutely nothing to do with it. No. I think what it talks to is the idea that people are trying to whip up problems. Yeah, and I have to say, the biggest cultural export from the United States of America to Britain recently is the idea of racial tension through Black Lives Matter. It was not bad. It was not as bad before that happened. Anyway, have Skittles helped?
And I'm sad to say the answer is true.
It's absolutely true.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
It's the oh dear Lord moment. NHS 999 operators, wait for it, have been told they must ask callers their preferred pronouns before dealing with their problems. Is it true or is it false?
I'm ashamed to say it is true.
Oh, no.
It is true.
It is true.
They've got the ideology going through the NHS because that is the biggest problem our National Health Service faces.
It is.
The ability to identify the gender.
Can you imagine? Oh my God, the house is on fire. Are you he, him? Get the... I don't care. I'll tell you what, I'll be neither very soon.
I'll be gone.
But this is a really serious problem because men and women are very different, and what you give to a man, you wouldn't necessarily give to a woman. Say, for instance, beetroot really lowers men's blood pressure, doesn't have the same effect on women. There's many different things, and this is really is confusing but dangerous.
I don't think there's any chance of getting any fresh fruit and vegetables in an NHS hospital. I don't know if you saw, Lizzie, the story recently. They're letting people who just say I'm a woman go into women's wards now in hospital. That's
I keep giving the example, which I think is revolting. Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh told its midwifery course to watch out because when they take the ladies' knickers off when they're giving birth, they might still have a penis and testicles. I guarantee you, of all the things that will happen, that is not one of them.
But no, I know. Well, like I said, we're joking around about it, but I think Lizzie's right. I think this is a really serious thing. That this shows just how insidious this kind of woke ideology is. That this is what the first thing they should be asking. And I'm not being funny. Like you said, if this house is on fire, I don't care about anything. Send a fire brigade. You know, if you're in trouble, send the police. You need an ambulance, send that. But like this kind of, it just shows that these people are so close-minded, are so hyper-focused on this stuff that they don't understand how ridiculous it sounds to the rest of the country.
I'll tell you what would happen. If you dialed 999 because you were being attacked, I'll tell you what would be more likely to happen. The police would probably go round to the operator for misgendering you. Just leave you to it. But that was the big issue. That misgendering was terrible. Anyway, so have NHS 999 operators been told to check people's pronouns? Is it true or is it false? It's absolutely true.
So defeated in that one.
It shouldn't be true, right?
Ben, as you do this show more, the one depressing thing is when stuff that was false later becomes true. Okay, so to Lizzie and to Pete, Kellogg's have been accused of sexualising breakfast with cereal boxes featuring sexy pictures of the drag queen RuPaul.
What? Oh my God!
I've had enough now.
Oh, I give up.
This must be true.
This must be true.
Like on Kellogg's Frosty, Tony the Tiger's now going to be called Tanya.
Yeah.
Tanya the Tiger.
Tanya the Tiger.
Yeah.
It's got sort of
easy tiger.
connotation.
What about Snack, Crapple and Pop? Because I mean, I'm not going to lie, those names are incredibly suggestive.
But this is really worrying. This is disturbing, actually. As I said, why do we keep changing things?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I don't understand. I don't understand why we've constantly got to get pictures that are quite sexualised and things like that. You know, I mean, I was watching the other day about that bloke twerking in front of all the kids at the gay pride celebration. The kids, they just...
Yeah, it's exactly
in fact, there's a great story about that. My brother turned on the TV with his son there, and there was that bloke twerking. And my nephew went, "What's that?" And he went, "He's getting ready for swimming."
Well, it's interesting that this is coming up because I'm pretty sure that at the moment, aren't they discussing about having plain packaging for cereal? I'm pretty sure I've read that.
What, if it could damage your health?
They're so scared.
Okay, in that case, let's have a bit of a survey. Let's go around the room. Would you rather that Kellogg's had plain packaging or a big picture of RuPaul naked? I think it has to be. I'm going to go with the plain packaging.
I think it's unanimous.
In the morning.
I actually have a picture of RuPaul in my flat.
I'd rather have a picture of you, Lizzie, on my cereal box.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd rather have no picture at all. if I'm forced to look at something.
Thank you.
Okay, but have Kellogg's sexualised their own breakfast? Is it true or is it false?
You think it's true?
I think it's true.
All right, let's go true.
Absolutely true! The popular Oxford Christmas market has been cancelled after the council insisted on putting a cycle lane through it.
So they said no market, you're going to just cycle where the market would normally go, where people might be able to sell their goods, make some money,
have fun,
promote the economy.
Well, of course, it's interesting. My younger brother went to Oxford University. I spent a lot of time there when I was doing debating. The thing about Oxford, which is a real problem, is that students who are exempt from paying tax and don't live in the town for a particularly long time, the average is about 3.5 years because it's undergraduates, but they are able to vote on the local council and they inflict on the local population absolute high tax, nutter wrong.
LTNs,
Absolutely.
everything,
And of course, then they don't pay the tax and they don't have to live through the problems. No. It's a real weakness of democracy in that town.
Well, Oxford is a particularly weak university, isn't it?
Did you go to Cambridge?
I didn't go to Cambridge. I wasn't actually making that point.
Okay.
I went to Egham Polytechnic, otherwise known as Royal Holloway College.
Cambridge is equally hijacked, by the way. Cambridge is absolutely equally hijacked.
They're very woke. They haven't had kids yet. They don't have any buy-in to normal grown-up life yet, do they?
No one wants this. Who voted for this? It's like that. I mean,
18-year-olds.
It's killing. Yeah, but it's killing businesses. It's killing
I feel,
fun.
and I want to ask Ben this because it's kind of your area. I just wonder now in business in this country whether you succeed despite the government. And I just feel
you have to.
Yeah.
You spend your life stepping around stupid regulations and laws and trying to just get through the day without tripping up on one of them. It is absurd. The amount of time given to minutiae, which we shouldn't be looking at, is just ridiculous.
Absolutely. Yeah. OK, so is it true or is it false that the Oxford Christmas market has been turned into a cycle lane?
We say true.
It's absolutely true! So come on, the prize today is, of course, a lifetime supply of iron brew, which will only be delivered when the drivers stop striking, and that's unlikely to ever happen. But anyway, let's see who's won it to the woke wabbit. Come on. Are you an iron brew drinker?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't think it's eco-friendly. I drink more water and
I'll tell you what, I drink water as well. It's a mixer for Scotch. OK, so who is the winner?
Lois, you're on 2 points. Lizzie, you're on 1 point, and Peter is on 0 points. So the total is 2-1.
Hey! Congratulations to Lois and to Ben. Thank you so much to the Woke Wabbit. Thank you to Pete and to Lizzie. I'm off home now to eat some Skittles. Goodbye.
I'm Mike Graham and this is TalkTV. You know what we're going to do now, don't you? It's Plank of the Week time. We do it every Friday night. It goes out at 7 p.m. and you don't want to miss it. Do you know why? Because it includes all of the people that you love to hate. It might even include some of the people that you love to love. It might be Harry and Meghan. It might be Sadiq Khan. It could be a football team. It could be the Prime Minister. It could be the leader of the opposition. It might even be someone up in Scotland. You never know. Watch us every Friday, 7 p.m.